Hi bot builders, this is Andrea Galately from Team Witch Doctor on the TV show BattleBots, and this is episode 3 of Witch Doctor Jr., made possible by Send Cut Send. Today we're going to continue building your very first small-scale BattleBot. In episode 2, we learned about motors and speed controllers, and how to figure out how fast your robot will drive. We also learned how you can use different gearboxes or wheel sizes to affect the speed and pushing power of your robot. If you missed it, you should go back and watch it to make sure that you have all the information you need to follow along today. Since we'll be working on electronics today, let's start by talking a little bit about electricity. You may already know that your battery stores electricity, but in order to use that electricity, we have to create a circuit. A circuit is just any closed path around which electricity can flow. That flow of electricity is called current. Let's start by taking a look at the simplest circuit we can build. It needs to have a source of electricity, so that'll be our battery. And it also needs to have a load, which can be anything that will use some of that electricity, like a light bulb or in our case, a motor. If the circuit doesn't have a load, then we technically would just be connecting the battery to itself, which is a bad idea. This would create a short circuit, which would generate a lot of heat and even some sparks, since the electricity has nowhere to go. All that heat could even melt your wires. So we have our battery, we're using the motor as our load, and we have wires to connect them all to allow the electricity to flow, to allow a current in other words. The motor should spin as soon as I complete this circuit, so I need to make sure that it can't move. Okay, now let's connect it and see if it works. Just as we expected, the motor spins as soon as I complete the circuit, and it stops spinning as soon as I disconnect the circuit. Like you just saw, we use wires to complete your circuit. Each wire is a long, flexible piece of metal that carries electricity. Wires don't look like metal from the outside, and that's because they're covered by insulation to keep the electricity flow only where you want it. We don't want any electricity flowing between the electrical components and anything outside of your circuit, like the metal frame of your robot, for example. This could cause sparks and it could damage your electronics, so that insulation around the metal core of your wire is very important. It's also color-coded to help you complete your circuit correctly. Today, we're going to create a circuit using the components in your kit. We're following along with the FingerTech Viper Kit instructions, so let's continue where we left off. The next step is to find the power jack, which will be the switch to turn your robot on and off. Switches are likely to be required at every event you go to as a safety feature, so you'll have to have one for your robot. So how does a switch work? A switch turns your robot on and off by interrupting one of the wires connected to your battery. In other words, it interrupts your circuit. When you turn the switch on, it creates a connection that allows electricity to flow, completing the circuit and turning the robot on. So when you turn your switch on, just imagine that it's physically completing your circuit. You turn the switch on by disconnecting this plug. Since this side of the switch is clear, you can actually see what's happening. Right now the plug is in, which means the robot is off. You can actually see that because this little metal spring is disconnected physically from the metal part above it. Keep your eye on that part as I disconnect it. You saw that spring up, and now it's making contact with the metal part above it. This means that the circuit is now complete and electricity can flow, turning your robot on. When I'm ready to turn the robot off, I just put this plug back in, and you see that it disconnected the circuit again. The switch that comes with this kit is slightly more complex than your typical switch, because it also allows you to charge your battery without having to connect to the battery directly. It comes pre-wired, so we don't have to worry about it right now, but we'll get into more detail on this when we talk about batteries and chargers. We'll use this switch to start creating our circuit. To make this build easier for you, this kit includes mini terminal blocks to help you connect the wires from the components together. All of the electrical components on your robot will need to get power from the battery, so we'll need a way to electrically connect all of the red wires on one side and all of the black wires together on the other side. These terminal blocks hold each wire securely, while also electrically connecting them together. If you didn't have these terminal blocks, one way you could connect these wires together is with a process called soldering. When you're soldering, you actually melt a metal, called solder, around the tips of the wires to hold them together. Soldering is a very important skill to have as a robot builder, and it's actually pretty fun. But it can take some time to learn how to solder, so we'll learn this in a later episode. Let's focus on getting your robot working first before we spend time on that. For now, these terminal blocks are an easy way to get your robot running sooner. You'll notice that there's already one wire in each terminal block that's coming from your switch. That's the wire that will connect your battery to the rest of the circuit. Let's go ahead and connect your speed controllers to these terminal blocks. It's a good rule to always connect red to red and black to black. There are some exceptions to this, but for this entire robot build, you should never connect a red wire to a black wire. Doing so can cause permanent damage to your electronics, so let's be very, very careful about that. You'll notice that the wires on your speed controller have a short section at the end where the insulation has been cut back, so you can actually see the metal part of the wire. They've added a little bit of solder on here to make it stiff enough to press into the terminal block. You're going to take that tip of the wire and gently push it into one of the holes on the terminal blocks. You should be able to insert the entire metal length. After you insert it, give it a little tug to make sure that it's held in place. If the wire pulls out when you tug on it, just try inserting it a little deeper and try again. Do the same thing for the red wire on the second speed controller. Just insert it into any empty hole on the terminal block. You still have one spot left, so you can add a weapon later. All these wires are held securely and electrically connected together. Then, connect the black wire on each speed controller to the black terminal block. This will complete our circuit since this completes the loop back to the battery. If you realize you plugged something in incorrectly, or if you need to replace a component later on, you may need to release a wire from this terminal block. If you take a look at the same side of the power terminal that you used to connect your wires, you'll notice that there's a little slot by each hole. Carefully using a sharp, flat tool, like an X-Acto knife or a small flathead screwdriver, press in that slot while pulling on the wire that you're trying to remove. This is a lot easier with a second person helping you to pull on that wire. Of course, you should always be very careful when you're using sharp tools like this, and make sure to get permission from a parent if you need it. Since electricity can flow through most metals, we want to make sure that we don't have any metal parts in your circuit that are exposed. If you do see a metal part in your circuit, make sure to cover it with some electrical tape. The last part we need to connect is the receiver. The receiver receives the commands you send from the transmitter and uses it to tell the speed controllers what to do. You see here that there are numbered channels on your receiver, from channel 1 all the way to channel 6. Each channel on the receiver receives a signal from a different action on your transmitter. We'll be using channels 1 and 2 for now, which are up and down and left and right on this right stick. Once you're ready to add a weapon, we'll connect it to channel 3, which is on the left stick. Take a look at the instructions to help you connect these correctly. Let's start with the right side motor. If you forgot which motor is which, just flip back through the instructions to see which way each one was wired. The speed controller that's connected to your right motor will plug into channel 1. Make sure to pay careful attention to the colors of the wires here. The brown and red wires are the power wires, and the orange wire is the signal wire. Make sure that the brown wire is connected towards the outside of the receiver. If you plug these in backwards, it won't damage anything, but your robots just won't move. Once you have the right speed controller plugged into channel 1, go ahead and connect the left speed controller to channel 2, right next to it. When you drive forward, you need to send current to both motors, right? That means you need to send a signal to both speed controllers, even though they're on separate channels. The transmitter mixes both of these signals for you so that your robot moves forward when you push the stick forward. It comes pre-programmed for this, so we don't need to do anything else to make it work. If you are using a transmitter that doesn't already have this function built in, you need to add an electrical component called a mixer to do this for you. You're probably wondering why there's 3 wires to the receiver, when everything else only uses 2 wires. Last episode, we learned that your speed controllers control the voltage that the motors get from the battery in order to control motor speed. Now the battery always provides full voltage as soon as you connect it to your circuit. You can use a resistor to lower that voltage, but that just wastes the extra power. Instead, the speed controller uses that third signal wire to pulse the voltage, basically giving the motor super quick pulses of full voltage followed by no voltage, so that the motor actually sees the average of these, which is lower than the full voltage of the battery. This is called PWM, or Pulse Width Modulation. I've invited Curtis from Fingertech Robotics to show you how this works.
Hi, it's Curtis from Fingertech Robotics here. Andrea asked me to explain why speed controllers use PWM for power. That might sound foreign, but I've set up a little experiment, and I'm going to try and explain it to you. This is a board I like to take to shows. It's basically the Viper robot without the chassis. So everything is laid out. You've got your transmitter, receiver, goes to your speed controllers. They're powered through terminal blocks, and the battery is down there. Each one goes to a motor. Voila, and it's got a lifter as well. What I've done is disconnected one of the motors, and instead I'm driving it straight from a battery through a potentiometer. Now that's something that can change resistance based on how you turn it. So Andrea's already taught you that if you give a different voltage to a motor, it'll go a different speed. But inside your robot, there's only the one battery. So how do we control the speed of the motors from 0 to 100% in an efficient way? We're going to look at the wrong way first. And what I've done is set up my oscilloscope to show you the voltage that is going straight to the motor. Right now it's 7.4 volts. It's the full voltage of the battery. As I increase the resistance, you can see it drops down. We'll put it down to 4.5 volts. Now the motor's going about half the speed, which is great, right? Not so much. The way we've achieved that is by burning off half of the energy from the battery in this resistor. So in fact, you've got a lot less torque here. I can stop it with barely anything. And electronics don't like heat. So, burning it off in a resistor is not a good way to go. Now, what electronics are really good at is turning things on and off. And they can do it incredibly fast, too. Once again, I've got the oscilloscope watching what's happening on this motor. That's showing up in blue. You can see a stream of signals. Each one, you can see there's a short pulse on, and then the rest of it is off. But as I push the stick up, the on portion gets larger and larger until it's all the way on. The white line here is actually showing us the average voltage. And so if we put it right around the same 4.5 volts that the other motor with the potentiometer was running at, you'll see that there's actually a lot more torque. It's full power. I cannot stop it with the finger the same way I was doing the other way, because we're not burning up half of our power in a resistor. So this happens, you might think, why is the motor not jittering or stuttering? This happens each pulse about 1,000 times a second, and basically the motor doesn't notice it. It sees pretty much just this average white line. So, your ESC electronically controls the speed of the motor by monitoring the signals from the radio receiver and modulating the width of the pulses of battery power to match what you're doing with the transmitter stick. Join us next time, where we'll teach you how to build your own speed controllers from scratch. Just kidding.
Thanks, Curtis, for sharing how that works. Now that you've connected all of your electronics, let's recap what's happening in our circuit. The current is flowing from our battery and through our switch. We'll use the switch to interrupt the circuit so we can turn the robot on and off. From here, it goes to each speed controller, which sends current to the motors depending on the inputs that you're sending from your transmitter. The speed controllers are both connected to the receiver, which receives the commands from your transmitter. Now you know how to connect your robot's electronics. You also learned some new words, like circuit, which is a closed loop around which electricity can flow, current, which is the flow of that electricity, and electrical insulation, which keeps the current away from any metal parts that are outside of your circuit. Try to get comfortable using these words so you sound like an experienced robot builder. I would like to thank Send Cut Send for making this video possible. I know you can't wait to start making your own robot parts, so let's take a look at the process. We'll go to sendcutsend.com and we'll click here where it says Get Started. It asks you to upload a file in one of these formats. Fortunately, we can download a DXF file right from Fingertech's website. We'll go to the picture of the armor panels and scroll down to this tab that's named CAD Files. CAD stands for Computer Aided Design. Here you see some engineering drawings in PDF, and you see the 2D DXF files, which are the files that we're going to use. I'm going to choose the front armor. Just save the file to your computer, and then we'll head back to upload it to SendCutSend's website. Once it processes the file, you can see how it looks. Make sure to check the units here so that your parts are cut correctly. This part is obviously not 166 inches long, since that would be really big. So I'm going to go ahead and switch the units here to millimeters. Now we're ready for the next step in this order process, which we'll discuss in the next episode. The next step to get this robot running is to assemble all of these components into the frame. It'll start looking a lot more like a finished robot in the next episode. I know electricity can be tricky to understand, and we jumped into a lot of information in this episode. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I'll see you at episode 4, where we'll assemble a lot of your robot, so it's going to be a really fun episode. Until then, happy building!